Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, September the 7th, 2016. At this time, we'll have a few housekeeping items that we need to go over. What'd I say? What's today's date? The 8th, excuse me. Today is Thursday, September the 8th. For those that are listening. Okay, at this time, we'll have some housekeeping items. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will be rebroadcast every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. and every Saturday at 12:30 p.m., and is available by video on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off the cell phones or any laptops that you may have. And if you wish to speak, you need to fill out a public hearing speaker card. We allot 10 minutes for those in favor of the case and 10 minutes for those in opposition of the case. And if we share that 10 minutes, so for all those that want to come up for public speaking, it's the 10 minutes total time. Please address the board and not the audience when you come to speak. At this time, Mr. Babb will give us the invocation and pledge.
Stand, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all of our many blessings. We pray that you will be our guiding light today as we discuss the business of our county. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Nelson. Do I have a second? Have a second by Ms. Green. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 14th and July 28th? I have a motion by Mr. Head. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. At this time, do we have any staff comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The comments that staff have, that we have this morning is that case number CU-16-02 for Shining Light Recovery Home for Women of McDonough, Georgia, located at 782 Racetrack Road, has been postponed by the applicant.
Thank you. This time, we're going to go ahead and move to the agenda items. If the staff please call the first case.
Case number CU-16-07, Stacy Richardson of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 1068 Daily Mill Road in land lot 66 of the 7th District. The property consists of 2 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a record service in the M1 Light Manufacturing Zoning District. The property is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Ms. Julie Yoder.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Board. The conditional use before you this morning is for the property located at 1068 Daily Mill Road. It's just south of Jodico Road. Here. Here's the railroad. Here's Daily Mill. And it sits or backs up to the applicant's current property and business located at 940 Daily Mill Road. This property here is already zoned M1 and has a conditional use for wrecker service with storage. The subject property is 2.22 plus or minus acres. Here it is again, the subject property, and then the applicant's current property. According to the Henry County official zoning map, the subject property is zoned C2, general commercial. The green parcels shown up here are the city of Stockbridge. And as you can see, this is a very mixed use area. Here we have industrial, residential, office institutional, and commercial. The subject property was rezoned in 2006 from RA, residential agricultural, to C2, general commercial. One of the conditions in this case limited the use of the property only to minor automotive repair, and the property never developed since then. This conditional use is contingent upon the approval of a subsequent rezoning case that'll be heard this evening at 6:30. With that said, the Planning and Zoning staff recommends approval of this request with the following conditions that only apply for the development of the subject property as a wrecker service with storage. Also, upon further consideration, staff recommends an additional condition that will ensure the applicant complies with the ULDC. And I have the conditions here. The condition in bold is the added condition. The first condition addresses access to the property through the current business, 940 Daily Mill. The second condition provides for the conditional use as a wrecker service with storage to expire. The third condition addresses the fence that's currently on site. And the fourth condition addresses development plans to be submitted. I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Okay, are there any questions for staff from members of the board? And Jim, we'll start with you since this is in your district, if you have anything.
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
To staff. Anyone else have any questions for staff? I have a question. So, put the map right back up there. I just want to make sure I understand
The zoning
correctly. The one, the legend, where there was no color on it and it just had the little green. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Okay, so existing is where you have the X. That already exists, and that's already a wrecker service and storage?
That's already their property,
Okay.
and it has the necessary zoning and conditional use for
Okay.
that.
And where is the entrance there? Is it like a little, looks like a little flag?
It is.
Lot right there, so that's the entrance. So that would be the only entrance to the remainder of
That's
the
what
new
we're
proposed.
requesting with the condition.
Right, so there could be no other entrance on Daily Mill. And is there already a fence there on Daily Mill separating that property out?
There is a fence on the subject property. It's a chain link with, I'm not sure, a sheer sort of behind
Right,
it. You
right,
can
right.
see through it.
Okay. And then is there a residence right beside it, you said?
There is, if you don't mind, I'll flip this back over.
Okay, all right,
This is RA. There is a house here somewhere.
okay.
And then these, of course, are RA over here.
Okay. So what's that was I was trying to think, what's behind it is what already exists as a record service.
This would just be an extension of that service.
Extension of that. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you so very much. I don't have anything else. If we can please call the applicant and have them to come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Steve Richardson, 207 Wind Drive, Hampton, Georgia, 30228.
Okay, was there anything you would like to add to staff's comments regarding this case?
No, ma'am, not necessarily. We did put 2 screens. You cannot see through the property any longer. It took us some time to build it, but you can no longer see through the fence. We have been there since October of 2011 without any noise or nuisance complaints whatsoever. So we've been there in excess of 5 years with no issues. We did tear down a substantially, there was a bunch of parties and kids and stuff carrying on there. When we purchased the property, we also purchased the 2 houses to the north of it, so we own those properties as well. All the neighbors, the immediate neighbors, Mr. Smith, who lives next door to the subject property, and Mr. Horton, who lives across the street, are very appreciative of the improvements that we've made to the property. So other than that, I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
Okay, Jim, did you have anything for the applicant? Did you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
I have just one question. You have a condition number 3, staff, that says a solid privacy fence or a solid wall, and you said you already have a fence up there, and it's kind of a screen fence, and I'm not really sure, Mr. Gibb, what,
Myself and the building department director have already toured the site. We've gone out to take a look at it. The fence that Mr. Richardson has installed is opaque in that you cannot see through it. and it's some type of mesh, and I think it's either double lined or triple lined, but it is opaque.
So it would be considered the solid privacy fence?
Yes.
Okay, all right then, I just want to make sure that there was,
Yes, ma'am.
that you were okay with that condition, and then if ever, something ever happened, it has to be a solid fence that you can't see through.
Yes, ma'am, that was previously handled, yes, ma'am.
Right, okay. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. All right, then we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address when you come up, and then give the speaker card to staff. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Robert Jenkins. I am the proprietor of Bellwether Incorporated, which is located at 1000 Daily Mill Road, which is a property just below the residence there.
Can you point that to that on that map that she's got there? Because I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. It's here. That's 3.56 acres that we have owned since the late 1970s. When we came there, it was, that gray area was zoned M1. It was already zoned and has been developed since that time. We have had a very little residential property in that area at that time, but since then, a lot of residential property has been developed up and down Daily Mill Road. We've always tried to maintain our yard in a responsible manner, maintain our landscape, our grounds, and we are very quiet. We don't make any noise. We don't make any smoke or anything like that, and we are very conscious of the fact that we're in what is now a residential area. It wasn't back then. We built our building in 1980. My contention here is that making a conditional use for this particular property is a very bad idea. I think it will dilute the property value for a lot of the residences, not only across the street, but up and down Daily Mill Road. You can put a fence around it, but it's still a record yard. And it's still got a collection of derelict automobiles in there. You can call it what you want to. I'm a little bit in fear of the bug and vermin infestation that usually follows such things, and I also am quite certain that it will not do anything to enhance the property value anywhere around there, and probably will drag it down. And I do request that you deny this conditional use permit.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Deborah Barge. I am in the Daly's Mill Plantation subdivision, and my property actually backs up to Daly's Mill Road. Right here. I am in the court, and the Wrecker Service driveway comes straight out to my property. I have no problem with people trying to have their own business. That's great. However, there's a fine line between the residential and the commercial. And I think in expanding this Wrecker Service in this manner would, as I agree with the gentleman before me, would decrease our property values. The street of Daly's Mill Road is already has tons of holes in it. The bridge is falling apart because of the huge trucks that are now coming up and down Daly's Mill Road to get to Jodico or Jonesboro Road. We have lots of lights coming into the back of our house. My husband and I both have complained many times to the warehouse people. They move them for a little while and then they move them back, and they come straight into the back of my house. Unfortunately, the Wrecker Service seems to operate 24/7. So we have huge trucks coming in and out of that area all day and all night. It's not a lot, but it's enough to warrant us being concerned about more of it. I think extending this would definitely decrease the property value and definitely decrease the whole value of our street, Daly's Mill Road as a whole. That whole area is expanding a lot, and the warehouses that were added after we moved there 16 years ago, quite a few of them are vacant. So to me, it is not a good commercial area because it's not a good entrance and exit out of that particular area. Maybe for a small business, but not necessarily for such a large endeavor. Therefore, I request that you deny the extension of that particular thing. I appreciate the fact that he did clean that lot up because it was a mess. You can tell this is the first time I've done this, so I apologize for being a little bit. Anyway, I would definitely appreciate you declining it, so. Who do I need?
Thank you. Just give that to staff, please. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Crystal Levine. My property is 1025 Daly Mill Road, so it's almost directly in front of the new fence that was added. I'm actually one of the red dots, if you can see right here. It's a flag lot. We purchased the house just a few years ago and have done a lot of improvements to that property. A few things that I would be mostly concerned with is I've actually purchased a property behind off of Chestnut Lane as well. So I own another house off of that, and we're also making that house look way better than it was. So we're trying to increase the value of the residential area there. My big fear would be that we would be decreasing the value of the residential area of what's already there. Somebody else brought up that the concern of rodents or bugs or just things that come with a tow yard. Not only would it be an eyesore, but there are things. I mean, it just happens, even if they're kept clean and cars come and go. But this is also, I think they do a lot of semi-truck hauling. I know they have a lot of large trucks. So even though they do have a fence that you guys are calling, I can still see through it. So I don't know how many layers of mesh they have, but when the light hits it right, you can see directly through that fence. It also has a row of bob wire or it's an eyesore. It's an eyesore for the land to actually see that. So that's something that I think needs to be looked at or addressed. So the large trucks you would be able to see. Again, it's a 24-hour-a-day operation, so it's increasing the traffic on that road. It's already hard to get on and off of Daly's Mill from Jodeco, and I live actually in that curve, so you hear a lot of the big trucks going by at all hours of the day. And that the biggest thing would be, what is it going to do to us residential area, the houses that we don't want to decrease value. We just moved there, so we're a local business owner too. It's important, but I just don't know if in that location it's wise to increase it. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to look at it, but it's not a pretty looking fence. So I would request that you deny this as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Alrighty, if no one else is coming up, we'd like to ask the applicant to please come forward. At this time, do any of the board members have any questions after hearing what the public has said? Do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher.
I have a question for staff. And I didn't see this in the report, but what does the future land use plan map show for this property or for this area?
I think it is stated, I'm not sure where though, in the staff report, but it is commercial on the future land use map.
Thank you.
comments from the board to the applicant or
I have a
staff?
question. Yes, for the applicant. Sir, how long have you owned the property?
The subject property? We
Yes.
bought it in April.
In April?
Yes, sir.
And you're currently operating as a record service?
Not on that, not on the subject property, no, sir.
Not the subject property, but
Oh, yes, sir.
the
We've been at
adjacent property.
940 Daily Mill Road. We've got 8+ acres there, yes, sir.
And how long have you operated there?
Since October 2011.
Since 2011? So you've had a record service at that location since 2011?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And to be clear, the only reason we need to expand is because we're now doing the county calls. So all the major wrecks that you see out here on the interstate or all the car wrecks, that's where the cars are going. And a lot of people don't have the necessary insurance to get their cars, so we're having to process them through the court system. So it takes a little time, and we're the proud owners now of 100+ cars since February of vehicles that have been wrecked on the county streets. So these aren't private tows or anything like that. We're doing this as a community service so people could travel safely through the county.
Now, what entrance are you using at this point?
Yes, sir. We have our own.
It might be easier to see on this side.
Where she's got the red dot?
Yes.
That is our entrance. We own that property. It's not
Is it a flag lot?
I don't know what you call it, flag. It's part of the property. It's not an easement, is what I'm trying to say. It's part of the deeded property. We own it.
Okay.
It was just easier being, obviously with the railroad tracks, we were landlocked to the rear. And so the opportunity came to get the 3.5 acres there. There's 2 other additional residences, which we own. We rent those out. And so we took the 2+ acres, fenced it off, tied it into our back fence.
So you're currently using the entrance that you would be using if it's approved or?
Yes, sir. There'll be no other entrance off of Daily Mill Road. It'll be the same traffic that's coming in and out of there now. They won't even notice that anybody's back there.
Did you change the fence at all, or is that the existing fence that you
Oh,
have?
no, sir. It was dilapidated. There was several dozen teenagers, as they can attest. There's an old pool house there, and there was an old storage building there, and they were several pits, beer bottles everywhere. They never hauled their trash off. I've had 2 dumpster loads of just household trash we've already hauled off. It was just a big party area. And Mr. Horton will be here tonight, who lives directly across. It has the blue marking. He lives across from that fence, and he's ecstatic. The fence is 8 foot tall, galvanized, heavy commercial grade, 3 strands barb, and it does have two layers of sheeting. And as the young lady said, at some point in time, you could see through the fence, but we've since put another layer so you cannot see through the fence. So it's completely sealed.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question, and if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
flip back over to the color, okay. There was a gentleman that said it was warehouses and industrial before they built the houses. So sometimes I know there's conflicting when developers come in and build houses around commercial and industrial, and then residents don't want that to increase because, they feel like it's gonna, mess with the property values. But is that a true statement, that warehouse, and it was already M1 prior to those homes being built?
That could be a question that the applicant can answer. But if Mr. Rich, did you have your hand up?
Do you remember that?
Well, yes, I have some recollection. Actually, the Daly's Mill subdivision was built probably about 20 years ago, but this industrial area was zoned, I think really from the 1970s, and it's now called the Renfro Industrial Park or Business Park.
Right, so it was already there.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, note, on the 4th condition, the applicant's intent is not to develop the property, but to just extend the current use from the already zoned M1 property. So with the 4th condition, I would suggest that there be an amendment to it at the end of it, just basically simply say, if warranted. The 4th condition that, Julie, if you would put that up, please.
I'll put this back up, yeah.
Okay, that's not on that's not in our.
No, yeah, I was in.
That 4th condition, only if warranted. If he intends to develop the property differently than what he's proposing now, which is just an extension of an existing use, after as such, comma, if warranted.
Mr. Richard, can you hear what he's saying? I can't understand what,
I apologize. Is this better? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, for the additional condition number 4, recommended by staff, given that the applicant's intent is just to extend an existing use from the M1 zone property with the record service with storage, the development plans being required should be if warranted. So if he intends to develop the property later on, development plan should be submitted as required standard by the ULDC. But just for the sake of this condition number 4 that was added in the 9th hour or 11th hour, at the end of that, I would have no objection there being, if warranted, added at the end.
That would be Mr. Risher. Mr. Risher.
With the development plan requirement, would that also include a compliance with the landscape ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we could require some landscaping in front of the fence to, help.
If he were to submit development plans, there would be a requirement for landscaping to be submitted as well.
All right, thank you.
Could we request that instead of every 50 feet, it could be 25 feet?
You can see if the applicant is agreeable to that.
How do you feel about a landscape plan, landscaping in front of that fence for aesthetic purposes, and then instead of every 50 feet, every 25 feet, have some tree plantings for aesthetics for your neighbors?
Sure. Well, what we had thought about doing is putting some Leland cypresses up, but I've got to get with DOT. There's some issues with that curve. Just this previous Saturday, we had somebody straighten out the curve, go across the road, hit a mailbox, come back across, and launch through our fence, and then bush bond, which means they ran and left. So it's destroyed the fence. It's since been replaced and repaired, but I've got to get with DOT and see what the right-of-way is, because they grow Leland cypress can grow quite big and large, so to make sure not impede the roadway. But that's already in the works. We don't have a problem with, we think that'll look better anyway.
And I'm assuming, staff, that there's enough buffer there between the fence and the road for him to have plantings for a landscape buffer?
I think there's 12 or 13 feet between the fence and the asphalt. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well,
Looking at the photo of the fence, I believe right there we have 60 foot of right of way. I think the survey shows 30 or apparent 30, but Georgia DOT, I think back in the late 60s, paved that road and bought some right of way in places. So I think we already own 30 from center, which appears to be about where his fence is. So any landscaping you're asking for appears to be that it would be in the right of way. And I can discuss that with my director as to whether or not that's something we'd be okay with. Typically, I don't like plantings in the right of way, but I understand the reason you're asking for it. But I would want it to be something, make sure it's outside of clear zone, or at least be something that be breakaway, basically a tree that would give if you hit it.
all right, so, and for the landscape plan, that would be something that you guys could coordinate with to make sure it was like you said, you want to plant Leland cypress, but if that's not a good tree for giveaway, you might want to think about something else.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have to work with DOT obviously for safety issues.
Right,
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
okay, all right then. I don't have anything else. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant or staff? All right, thank you so very much. You may be seated.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All righty, and we're gonna go ahead and call the case.
Case number CU-16-07, Stacy Richardson of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 1068 Daily Mill Road and land lot 66 of the 7th District. The property consists of 2.22 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a record service with storage. The property is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Ms. Julie Yoder.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case? Mr. Risher?
Yes, I would like to move to approve the request with the 4 conditions that the staff has recommended, with the addition that that a landscape plan be submitted with appropriate landscaping of Leland cypress, and it would be no less than 20-foot intervals.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second?
A second?
I have a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Okay, any denied? Motion carried. All righty. Next case, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Case number CU-16-08, Gary Scott Holcomb of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 125 Michaela Drive in land lot 181 of the 8th District. The property consists of 1 ± acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. The property is located in Commission District 1 and will be presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicant in this case is requesting a conditional use for a non-commercial kennel. The applicant is a hobby breeder, and the county's code currently permits that a resident can have up to 4 pets. The resident in this case actually has 6, and so they're applying for a non-commercial kennel conditional use. This conditional use would permit them to have up to 10 adult pets. It requires 50-foot setbacks of all structures and fences associated with the kennel use. And there is a variance request that is running concurrently with this application. Please keep that in mind. Also, this non-commercial kennel use would not permit them to accept outside pets. So this is not for other people's pets. This is just for the pets that they have. The applicant has already agreed to a condition to allow a maximum of 6 adult dogs. And they've also agreed to screen their outdoor fences and runs. This situation would actually produce an environment that's more restrictive for the animals than would otherwise be required or permitted. So on that note, staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All righty. Are there any questions from staff from the board to staff?
Yes.
Mr. Bell. I'm sorry, Mr. Head.
Have there been any letters of opposition? To my knowledge, there have been no letters of opposition. We have received some phone calls with concerns and questions, but people seem to be mostly concerned about understanding what it is that a non-commercial kennel involves. But to my knowledge, we received no letters.
So what about code enforcement? Has there been anything from code enforcement?
To my knowledge, there have been no code enforcement calls associated with this residence and their animals.
Or any other questions from board members to staff? I have a question. On criteria number 4, it says the applicant has formally agreed with planning staff to be limited to 6 dogs, even though I guess they can have up to 10, but they said they're going to limit it. I just have a question. Why wouldn't that be a condition if they agreed to that?
The applicant has been very willing to work with planning and zoning to create a condition that's palatable for everyone in the neighborhood. They have reached out to all of the adjacent property owners. They have specifically asked if there's anything that they could do to make this palatable. They really have an interest in maintaining the 6 animals that they have, and not so much to expand their business, but basically to kind of make things correct legally.
And I think you misunderstood my question.
Sorry.
In other words, they have formally agreed with staff to have just 6 dogs.
Absolutely.
And my question was, why wasn't that a condition? Because unless we put a condition on it, they could have up to 10, right? So we need to add a condition, and I'd be up to Mr. Head.
If you want to make sure that they are limited to a certain number of dogs, a condition would be something that the board can consider.
Okay. So I don't know, Mr. Head, you see what I'm talking about? Okay, because they agreed to 6 dogs, and so if you want to make that as an additional condition. That's all I have. All right, if I can ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Gary Scott Holcomb, 125 Michaela Drive, McDonough, Georgia.
Okay, did you have anything you would like to add to staff's comment?
No, ma'am. Other than, my letter of intent says it all. I would like to clarify one thing. There was a code enforcement call last week. I had these dogs stay inside in their kennels. My wife had to have surgery Monday before last. So when I got home, there was a note on the door from code enforcement that said there had been a complaint for a dog barking. I immediately called code enforcement, and he had checked over to the side, the no violation scene. And when I spoke to him, he said when he came out, there was not a dog barking, and when he knocked on my door, there was not a dog barking.
Okay, any board members have any questions for staff? I'm sorry, guys. I guess I'm not used to early in the morning board meetings. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher.
Okay, I understand that your garage is going to be that the garage will be where you're going to keep the dogs. They're going to be in pens inside your garage?
Yes, sir. That's where they are at this time.
Okay.
We have 6 professional kennels in the garage, and it's set up, and that's strictly, where these dogs live in air conditioning.
And you have a fence around your property where they can go outside?
Most certainly. My entire property I have fenced in. I have some runs out there now, but after looking at to be in compliance for this conditional use, the 50 feet from the property line, I will have to reconfigure some dog runs to ensure that they are 50 feet from the property line.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Nelson has a question.
Yes,
What are you doing exactly, Mr.? Are you selling dogs, or what do you do? You're breeding them and training? What's
Breeding them
happening?
and selling them.
Breeding and selling?
Yes, sir. And when the puppies are born at 8 weeks, normally they're sold as soon as they're born, but we don't release them till they're 8 weeks old. Okay. And then within a week or so, they've been adopted out and they've went to their new homes.
Okay. Now, have you talked with your neighbors in terms of, or have you heard gotten any complaints from any neighbors in reference to the dogs barking?
I have spoke with all of my neighbors. I have one neighbor on the north side of my property, and they didn't complain directly to me, but they do have opposition to this. I've reached out to them and let them know if I were granted this conditional use, that there would be additional fencing. On the north side of my property, I have 4-foot chain link up my property line. It was actually 4 feet on the inside of my property line. Mm-hmm. And I've got Leland cypress that's been there for since 2000. We've been there for 16 years. Here again, I reached out to the neighbors on the north side of my property and asked them if there was anything that I could do that would help this, to ensure that I wouldn't be imposing on them. And I had told them, that I would do on the run that's on the north side, it would be complete privacy fence, as the rest of my property is now.
Now, I understand there is you're requesting a variance in reference to the setback.
That's on the south side of my property. That's where the garage door opens, and I'm lacking 7 feet.
The garage is located 43.2 feet from the property line, and the ordinance requires 50-foot setback.
Okay.
So their deficit, 6 feet and some.
And that's on the south side of your property? And
Yes, sir.
how far is that from your neighbor's property in terms of their location or their house?
The way the houses are staggered, there's a lot more room on the south side. And there's a letter, you all should have a copy of it. I have a letter from the neighbor on the south side of my property.
All right, that's all I have.
I have a question. In your letter of intent, you said all puppy delivery or shipping is done off premises. So tell me how that works. So when you breed your dogs and they have puppies, you don't keep the puppies there, you take them somewhere else and sell them off premises? I mean, how does that work?
Well, the puppies are sold either online or via Facebook. So
Okay.
we don't bring anyone to our home.
Okay,
So there's absolutely zero business transaction going on at our home.
okay, because I was thinking about the traffic in and out for folks
Right.
coming to looking at the puppies and coming and getting puppies.
Right.
And you say, so you ship these
Absolutely
puppies?
zero. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We, they go all over the place. They're exotic dogs, the breeds that we've chosen. So, they fly. We go meet people, just whatever it takes to get them to their new homes.
Oh, that breaks my heart. Okay, I'm sorry. I just kind of had a little moment there about the shipping of the puppies. But if that's how they're done, it's how they're done. So, but then I guess I'm assuming you have a lot of UPS or FedEx or wherever you ship them come through.
Not at our property, no, ma'am.
Okay, that's somewhere else.
Yeah, the word ship does sound a little rough. At times, we have flown dogs to their new locations, so I drop them off at the airport.
Okay.
Other than that, we meet the new owners and do a transaction at a public place.
Okay, so, Mr. Head, would you consider a condition that says that no puppies will be sold or shipped from the premises? Would you, as the applicant, agree to that, since in your letter of intent it says that you're already doing that, that you're not shipping or,
Absolutely.
delivering puppies from the
Ye-
premises?
yes, ma'am.
Is that we can add that as a condition?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Add a condition. All right, and then, I think that's all that I had. Oh, and you said there's not a fence on the south side. Did I hear that? And you're gonna put a fence up, or?
No, there is a fence.
Okay.
I have 4-foot chain link up the south side of my property line. Okay? If this conditional use, if I'm granted this, then I'll have to have the run at least 50 feet off of that north side property line. So at that time, I'll put the privacy fence 50 feet from the property line, so the people on the north side of me, they'll absolutely, it'll be helping them.
So, staff, should we put that as a condition that he is gonna put up the privacy fence? And I don't know which side you said that would go on.
The north side of the
The
property.
north side?
That can be a condition that the board considers with this conditional use.
With the conditional use, not this one. Is this the conditional use?
Yes.
Yes. I didn't know which one it should go on, this one or the setback.
If you add it as a condition to the conditional use, either or,
Okay.
it will still be a condition that this
Okay.
property would need to meet.
Mr. Head, I didn't know if you wanted to add that as a conditional, one of the conditions to add that privacy fence on the north side. I'm adding a lot of conditions to your, to your case, and I apologize. And that would be at your discretion, so. I don't have anything else for the applicant. Any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Head, you don't? All right, you may be seated.
No,
Thank you.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Head
sorry.
has a
Oh, you do have a question. I'm sorry, I thought you said you were good.
I am. Barking, and I know that that's one of the things that neighbors have problem with. How often would the dog be in the run?
Twice a day.
What about,
Usually, how the schedule is for these dogs is in the morning, between 8 and 9 o'clock, we let them out for a couple of hours. Then the dogs, just rotating. And then the dogs are all in there, during the afternoon. And then in the evening, maybe around 5 o'clock, start rotating, giving them some outside time, and then they come back in and spend the night inside the house, in their kennels.
Any,
Yeah, I have one other
okay,
question.
Mr. Nelson.
Now, earlier you mentioned that your wife was sick and there were some complaints about the dog barking. Do you have additional help or anyone to help you when those dogs are out? I'm assuming that they're calmer when someone is there, or you're controlling the barking at that point, so.
Right. Normally, never would they be outside if we're not home. So yes, I did have help that day, had let the dogs out, but I wasn't gonna get back home until after 12 o'clock. So the dogs might have been out there for an hour, maybe 2 hours longer than they're normally outside.
Any other questions for the applicant from board members? Okay, I don't hear anything. You may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to call for those who want to speak in favor of the case. We're going to allow 10 minutes for those to speak in favor of the case. All right, I don't see anyone coming up. So now we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. You'd come up, please, and state your name and address for the record.
Morning. Oh, let me make that way shorter. My name is Becky Skidmore, and I live at 129 Michaela Drive, so I am the neighbor to the north. I'm here to oppose the application for the non-commercial kennel. Our subdivision is Keys Ferry Crossing. We're comprised of 24 homes on lots less than 1 acre. It is my understanding, and of course we've all seen the land survey that was conducted. So if there is a 50-foot buffer required on all 3 sides, there's also, you're taking away from the usable space with the outbuilding, the swimming pool with the concrete patio, and so they're left with precious little room to actually have the runs. So part of my question is there a way to keep the dogs humanely in those small runs and also in the garages all day in kennels? And you can't. I'm also confident that once this is approved, if it is approved, that they will use the buffer area. I spoke with Jake Williams at Southside Realty because I was concerned about the resale value of my home, having a kennel directly next door. He did say that it would negatively impact the resale value of my home should I choose to sell, once it was found out that there was a kennel located next door to my residence. I also, in considering purchasing a home, would not even want to live next to somewhere that had 10 plus puppies. And I know you did speak about having it capped off at 6. They actually have 7 dogs. They have an indoor dog that is a mix that also comes out every now and then. The dogs next door are allowed. They're allowed to bark all hours of the day, keeping us from sleep at night and waking us in the morning. They're out as early as 6:30 in the morning. They woke my daughter up this morning, in fact. Because there are so many of the dogs, you can even hear them when they are in their garage all barking. I know the garage is on the other side from my property, but when they're all barking in that garage, it echoes and it does get very loud and you can hear it. They've awakened my children from naps and kept them from falling asleep at night. When they bark, I can actually hear them in all parts of my house, whether I'm sitting on the other side in my dining room, and especially in our bedrooms, because our bedrooms are located on this side of the property. And my house is only 15 feet away from the property line. So even if they had the 50-foot buffer, that's still putting dogs 65 feet away from my bedroom walls. 6 dogs barking at the same time and growling and howling at each other when they're all outside is overwhelming, and you can also hear them throughout the neighborhood. And I've actually taken a walk throughout just to see how far the sound carries, and it does carry pretty far. A couple of the neighbors have said, yes, we can hear them at our house. I'm recommending denial, and as you make your decision, I'm going to ask all of you to consider how many of you would like to live next door to a kennel. And I do want to thank you for your time and ask if you have any questions for me.
This is just a public comment session, so it's not a question and answer session.
Okay.
But thank you so very much.
Thank you.
You may be seated. Anyone else like to come and speak in opposition of the case? Okay. I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant since we've heard public comment?
You listened to what your neighbor had to say about the noise. Can you comment on that?
If you'd like me to, I could.
Okay.
I feel that you'll find someone like that in about every neighborhood throughout this county. I've got letters from my other neighbors, and what I've heard is entirely not true. And if it were true, there would be complaints.
Okay, and then I have a question for staff. So the dogs on the property, whether they're for breeding or for their own personal use, it's the total of the dogs that are in the house or the pets that are in the house. Is that a correct statement? So in other words, there's actually, because he said he wanted to cap it at 6, but if he's got another dog inside the house that's not in the kennels, that would be 7 pets. Is that correct? I mean, they're still considered pets. Is that correct? Even though it's a business?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we cap it at 6, one of the dogs will have to go. Do you understand that?
I understand that now. I did not understand that. The dog in question is like a 5-pound Chihuahua.
I don't think it matters. It's just
Well,
the fact
I'm-
that you have, what I'm saying is,
I
you're capping it
understand.
at 6, you have 7 dogs.
Madam Chair, as a point of clarification, the ordinance requires that they have not more than 10 adult dogs.
I'm familiar with that, but we were
Adult
going to put a
dogs.
condition that said 6 dogs because he said he would cap it at 6.
I was just getting to the point that perhaps the dog in question might not be an adult.
Might be an adult.
It might not be an adult.
Oh.
The ordinance says they're allowed to
Adult
have
dogs.
adult
Right,
dogs.
because they're going to have babies, so he's going to have babies there that's going to make it more than probably 10 dogs.
Right, but
Because
the
if
dog
he's-
in question, I'm not sure as to whether or not
Is
it's
that
an
an
adult.
well, I don't know, what's the age of an adult dog?
Question needs to be, how many total dogs are on the property now? And then the condition to limit the number of dogs should revolve around that context.
Okay, for some reason, I can hear you, but I can't understand what you're saying.
Okay, I am not sure what's going on with the system right now. Is
Okay.
this better?
This better.
Okay, very good. Regarding the total number of dogs and a condition limiting the total number of dogs, it probably would be in the board's interest to ask the applicant how many total does he have there now? And how many does he intend to maintain as far as the average, with the exception of the puppies that he sells? And then cap it at that number instead of 6, in that I think he has 7 on his property, adult dogs on his property now, including the little Chihuahua. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I apologize for the misunderstanding. I thought that we were talking about the dogs in question here as far as for the business.
I think a lot of people do. I think that they don't, pets are, it's total pets. Is that correct? Not just dogs. So if you have cats,
Domestic animals is what the
it's
ordinance
just
says.
animals. It's right, animals. It's total animals. So a lot of people, they think, oh, I only have 6 dogs, then I have 10 cats. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So there's a limit to how many animals can be on your property.
Domestic.
That includes birds too, right? I'm just, do you have any birds?
No,
Okay.
no, we're out of the bird thing.
It sounds like I'm being facetious, but I'm not. A lot of people just misunderstand when you talk about animals. It's not just, it's total. So, the condition, do you want to put a condition to say 7 instead of the 6?
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to, have to
Get rid of
our-
your Chihuahua.
That's the actual pet that's actually in the house and then there's 6 dogs that are used for breeding.
Instead of the condition, he was going to cap it at 6, but he wants to make it 7 because he wasn't counting his other dog that's not part of the business. That will be kept on the property. Well, the other dogs are kept on the property also. It's just, it doesn't include the puppies. Because puppies are not part of the cap of the 10. That would be your decision. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Head?
Staff.
Staff? Okay.
Can you, just for the records, can you tell us how many dogs that is allowed?
How many dogs are allowed? It's my understanding that the county currently allows 4 pets. With the non-commercial kennel use, the ULDC would allow up to 10 adult dogs.
And that's with the conditional use.
That is with the conditional use.
What do you mean by that? They have to ask,
The allowance up to 10 domestic animals, adult domestic animals, is with an approved conditional use.
Okay.
Outside of that, the county only allows 4.
okay. So they have to have permission to have the 10, otherwise you're only allowed to have 4 dogs. Okay. And right now, he has 7.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Nelson? Okay, okay. Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
If we could call the case.
Case number CU-16-08, Gary Scott Holcomb of McDonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for for property located at 125 Michaela Drive in Land Lot 181 of the 8th District. The property consists of 1 ± acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District, and the property is located in Commission District 1 and was presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Okay, do we have a motion for this case?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that it be approved or staff approval with the condition that there be a privacy fence put on the north side, and also that there be a condition that which would limit no more than 7 adult dogs on this property, and also that no dogs would be sold from this property or picked up from this property.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Head. Do I have a second? Have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Do I need to say who is opposed, or do we already, they don't need to record that?
It's on video, and it's fine.
It's on the video, okay,
Yes.
okay, all right.
We just need to know the outcome of the
Okay.
motion.
We can call the next case, please.
Case number VR-16-07, Nicholas Williams of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 1240 Eagles Landing Parkway in land lots 13 and 20 of the 6th District. The property consists of 3.24 ± acres, and the request is for an additional wall sign. It is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
The applicant in this case is requesting a variance for additional signage. Henry Physician Center, this building is located at the intersection of Eagles Landing Parkway and Rock Quarry Roads. And it's a 3-story commercial office building that houses several medical practices. At present, the building has 1 wall-mounted sign for each of its facades. I'm sorry that the picture isn't larger, but as you can see kind of up toward the top there on that side, you have a Piedmont sign. There's 1 sign like that on each side. It's not necessarily Piedmont, but each sign is a different tenant within the building. And at present, they have 4 of them. They have 1 on each facade. So the request today is actually for an additional sign on the south-facing facade, which is the side that you can see here, the broad side. At present, there's 1 sign for a medical practice located on the left-hand side, and today Eagles Landing Family Practice is requesting a 2nd sign, which I can show you, to also be located on the south-facing facade. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so at present, there's 1 sign located right here, and the request is to place the 2nd sign down on this end. You can see this end of the building right here, and the request is by Eagles Landing Family Practice, so the sign would look like this. All right. Earlier in the year, when the tenants of this building applied for signage, it was discovered by a colleague of mine that they actually qualified for a special provision within the code, which allowed them to have an additional sign on their secondary facades. So it did kind of allow them to get some additional signage for their tenants. But unfortunately, it appears that they've come to a point where they have more tenants than facades. And so they're trying to allow a 2nd sign for Eagles Landing Family Practice where there's already 1 on that side. And the way that the ULDC is written, it requires that all criteria points be met for a variance before a staff recommendation of approval. And in this case, there are no extraordinary circumstances, and for that reason, staff recommends denial of the request.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Are there any questions from the board for staff?
I have a question.
We have a question.
All right, so there's already a sign okay. What's the code that there is a code, I guess, that limits the number of signs on the outside of a building. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
And what is the code for that?
Just one moment, I'm sorry, let me get my code.
I just need to know, like, how many signs are allowed on the outside of a building.
The code is written to allow a commercial business to have one sign per primary facade, and a primary facade is a side of a building that faces a major street, not like an internal street, but a major street. So under kind of like those guidelines, they would have one on Rock Quarry Road, and they would have one on Eagles Landing Parkway. And their other two facades are interior. They're minor. Basically, one faces a parking lot, and the other faces another business, essentially, and some other roads. So under our principal evaluation, they would have one sign on two sides, and the other two would not. Because of the special circumstance that Josephine identified, which was actually 70409. It's section 70409. It allowed them to have one sign per secondary facade. And so that's how we got to 4 signs. I'm sorry, just one moment. Businesses, okay. Okay, so in 70410, chart D, this would be the chart that we would typically use to evaluate a business for the number of signs. Under wall signs, it says that they're allowed to have one, provided that the combined total square feet does not exceed the maximum number allowed. Oh, right, they're allowed to have one, in essence, I'm sorry. It should be one per primary facade. Am I missing something? No. Okay. In any event, like I said, they should have one sign per primary facade. We have the special provision which allowed them to have one sign per secondary facade, and that's how we got to 4. So at this point, they're trying to get 5.
So the other 2 signs are not facing, so there's a sign facing Eagles Landing Parkway, and then there's a sign facing, that's Rock Quarry.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. The sign that's facing Rock Quarry, isn't that sign that's on the building, isn't that just the name of the building? It's not the name of the business?
It is the name. It's a Piedmont sign, Piedmont Healthcare. They have one on the Rock Quarry facing side.
Right, so that's not the name of the building though, right? What's the name of the building?
It is not. The building is named Henry Physician Center.
Okay.
And I could be mistaken, but on the opposite end from Piedmont, kind of over on the Henry Medical Center side, I believe the name of the building is on that side.
Is on that side, so that's the 3rd sign. What signs on the back side then? Do you know what's on the back side?
I'm not familiar with which business, but there is one.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to, okay, go ahead, Mr. Richard.
I think according to your photographs in here, there is a ground sign that's, that's on the property but separate, from the building. Now, could not the new business, have that signage on that ground sign?
They could, and there is a ground sign present.
Okay.
That's all.
Any additional questions? Okay. I don't have anything. All right. If there is no additional questions, will the applicant come forward, please? Please state your name and address for the record.
Nicholas Williams, 246 Eagles Landing Way, McDonough, Georgia, 30253.
Okay. Do you have anything additional you'd like to add to staff comments?
Initially the intent when we entered into the building along with Ortho Atlanta, whose sign was recently, I guess there was right there is where Ortho Atlanta has a sign. That was initially denied, and I guess there was a reevaluation of how you count the signs. I'm not exactly clear what happened, but recently their sign was put up, and ours would be on the adjacent end. It's the exact same size. It's a very professional looking sign, and Henry County is a need-based area for primary care. We could help stem the flow of the overcrowding at the emergency room, but people have to know we're there. And we are one of the only primary care or people that could actually address those concerns in that area because we're open till 9 p.m. Even the urgent cares close at 8 p.m. So that would be that was the initial intent and purpose of the owners and everyone. I guess we just overlooked or didn't realize what the actual law was, which is obviously completely our fault. But that would be the need for the sign. Nothing more than that.
Does the board member have questions for the applicant? Question?
So Eagles Landing Family Practice is down the street. Are they moving to this building?
We're already in it. We are basically almost the entire ground floor of the building.
You're still in the ground floor.
Yes, ma'am.
And so and this might be for staff, and I don't know if that you know this, but the signage that says Piedmont that faces Rock Quarry,
Yes, ma'am.
that's a tenant, I'm assuming, Piedmont. Is that like an urgent care? Is that what you're talking about? Who's Piedmont?
No, ma'am. I think it's just Piedmont. I'm speaking out of turn, so I don't know
Okay.
specifically, but I know that they have the Breast Health Center there,
The what?
which is the Breast Health Center.
Okay.
Which is on the second floor, which is part of, it's just an extension of the Piedmont Henry Hospital. They were one of the back, I would imagine, this is the part where I don't know for sure, but I would imagine they are the guarantors of the lease, and it's on Hospital Authority land. So I just think that was part of their deal.
That was just, I thought that was the name of the building, but now that I see that's not the name of the building, it is a tenant that's in there.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay. I have no further questions.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. If no question, you may be seated, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of this case. 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of the case. If no one's coming forward, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those speaking in opposition of the case. No one speaking in opposition. Applicant, you may come forward, please. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant?
I do, one more, I apologize. So there is a sign that is facing, and actually you can see the sign even from Eagles Landing, because I did go and look, and it has the names of all the tenants that are in the building. My question is, why would there need to be an additional signage on the side of the building when there's already a freestanding sign with the name on it?
Because it would be a backlit sign to where you can see it coming down the road. Whereas here, it's very hard to read. I mean, it's exceptionally hard to read during the day.
Is that sign not lighted at night?
I don't believe so, but I don't know for sure. But I do not believe so.
So is the sign going to be, you said it's like a neon sign? Is it, you said backlit? How's that going to work?
It's exactly the same way of the other sign that was just approved. It's the letters are individually lit, and it would be in the color of our logo. It's a very minimal size sign just to fit, and I think it would actually help the aesthetics of the building. But I could probably give you I wish I had a copy of what it would look like, but in color.
I guess I don't want to say it's a problem that I have, it's, when you open up the floodgates for everybody to want to have a sign on the side of the building, well, you let them have it,
We're the only two, there were only two tenants outside of Piedmont that were allowed in their lease to have signage outside, and it was us in Ortho Atlanta, so we are literally the last one able to do it.
Well, their staff, who's the other, where, you said there's other signage, there's 4 signs already, so there's got to be more than just, because the Piedmont's got a sign, and the Ortho's got a sign. Who are the other 2 that have signs?
Atlanta on the south side, Piedmont on the west side. I believe on the east-facing side is actually the building itself, the name of the building itself, Henry Physician Center, and I'm not sure about the north-facing sign.
Okay.
Any additional questions? I have a question. Based on that, have you talked with the landlord in terms of maybe removing one of those signs and adding your sign?
They were in agreement with us when we first started. This shocked them as well because they didn't think it would be a problem. So they're in agreement. The Eagles Landing Community Association has approved it. And I would just note that one of the, I have a letter, it was included in the packet, that was the approval of the landlord recently, and the hospital as well, Piedmont Henry Hospital CEO approved. of the 4 signs, so you see the one here, that's Piedmont right there. Ortho Atlanta is here. We're requesting to be on the far end, down at the way other end of the building. The 4th sign is literally on a portico. It says Henry Physician Center, but it's not on the actual side of the building. It's actually, there's a portico that you would pull under so you wouldn't get rained on, and it's actually on that. It's not actually on the side of the building. It's lower, so it's not up as high as the Piedmont sign or our sign would be. It's on the very first level, on the portico itself.
Well, I have additional question for you. Again, based on that, have you talked with the landlord in terms of maybe removing one of those signs and adding your sign?
No,
Or
sir.
that hasn't been discussed?
I haven't. I really don't think they anticipated, nor I anticipated that this would be a problem even today.
Okay. And I have a question for staff as well. And based on the fact that he's indicating that that sign is not on the building, does that count as one of his 4 or not?
As far as our assessment, we determined that to be an actual facade, regardless of whether it's on the portico or the building itself.
I got you. No additional questions? You may be seated, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to call the case.
Case number VR-16-07, Nicholas Williams of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 1240 Eagles Landing Parkway and land lots 13 and 20 of the 6th District. The property consists of 3.24 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an additional wall sign. The property is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Okay, we have a case. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to go with staff recommendation of denial based upon the ULDC requirement that all criteria for granting variances be met, and so that's going to be my recommendation.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Any opposed? I'm sorry. One opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Right. Call the case, please.
Case number VR-16-08, Gary Scott Holcomb of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 125 Michaela Drive and land lot 181 of the 8th District. The property consists of 1 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction in the side yard setback. The property is located in Commission District 1 and will be presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the variance that is associated with the conditional use at 125 Michaela Drive that we just heard about. And again, it's for a non-commercial kennel. The applicant is a hobby breeder, and they use their garage to house commercial-grade kennels for their animals. The ULDC does permit the siting of a non-commercial kennel in a residential location, subject to the supplemental standards provided in ULDC Section 4.03.01. Those are just supplemental standards in addition to the regular development standards. The applicant does have the intent to comply with all the requirements. However, their home's garage is situated 43.2 feet from the property line, and this conditional use would require that they be able to meet 50-foot setbacks for all fences and structures associated with their kennel. And at this point, they have a deficit of 6.8 feet. It might be helpful to note that at the discretion of the director, he has the ability to offer an administrative variance, and they are just shy of qualifying for that administrative variance. So they're very close in having to come to you today. Granting this variance would still produce an environment that's more restrictive for these animals than would otherwise be required. You guys are aware that they're allowed to have 4 animals. They can allow them to run up to a fence, things of that nature. And so this variance, again, would just mean that they can continue to use their garage. And of course, it's necessary for them to make use of the conditional use that they were just approved. So Because of the way the ULDC is written, it requires that all criteria points be met for a variance, and for that reason, staff must recommend denial. However, it is at the discretion of this board to determine whether or not you will grant this variance. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do any staff, any board members have any questions for staff? Mr. Head?
When you said that, how many feet, how many inches is it that that would be required before he would meet the
They need 6.8 feet.
6.8 feet?
6.8 feet. Their garage is 43.2 feet from the property line.
Question. So the garage is conforming now, is that a correct statement? And it's just because he has the kennel and he's putting up a fence, is that the problem?
No, the problem is because they're using the garage itself. Under the regular development guidelines they're zoned RA, and so under the regular guidelines, their house is conforming. There are no problems. Because they're seeking to use their house in association with the non-commercial kennel, they have to meet higher supplemental standards, and so now this 50-foot setback is the problem.
Okay,
So.
okay, I see what you're saying. But that's not the side that the fence is going to be on. There's already a fence there.
There is already a fence there.
So is it the house would be it would be the house, the garage that's not set far back, or is it the fence?
It's the garage.
It's the garage,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So then the fence would be a problem too, because unless the fence is right up on the garage.
No, actually, the outdoor runs that we spoke of earlier, and I apologize for not having a clearer depiction here. Sorry. The outdoor runs would actually be situated within the fence, so you can see. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I point in the right direction. Okay. So if you can see where my fingers are, the property lines are actually up here and down here. And the Holcombs have drawn in where their fenced runs would be, so they would be in here. It would only be when the dogs are in the garage, which is here on this side. You can see it's outside of this line for the outdoor run. It would only be when they're in the garage that there would be a problem. And of course, at that point, they would be just under 7 feet out of compliance with the code.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Risher?
Here again, the garage is already there, so the only issue is the fact that that he's going to have kennels inside that garage. Now, based on that, and then depending on how he places the cages or kennels inside the garage, would the measurement be from the edge of the inside, kennels, or would it be actually from the garage itself? I mean, I think it's probably subject to some interpretation.
I like the way you think. It is quite possible that inside that garage, they could make sure that their kennels are placed outside of that setback. It's entirely possible.
So they could actually put up maybe a wall if they're not using their garage.
That would be a question for the applicant.
Right. I'm kind of thinking out loud with Mr. Risher.
But Ben, I have a question, Ben, if you brought that out.
The question, how does the code read? Does the code read that the kennel should be within the 50 feet setback?
The code suggests that all structures and fences should be at least 50 feet away.
Okay, and the structure and fences, in this case, would be considered the garage or the kennel?
The garage.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? All right, the applicant can please come forward. State your name and address again for the record, please.
Good morning. Gary Scott Holcomb, 125 Michaela Drive, McDonough, Georgia.
Okay, any board members have any questions for the applicant?
You just listen to what they said, so how would you maneuver that to make it work?
Well, there is a possibility. I may have 4 or 5 feet now. Maybe if I slid the kennels north another foot or two, we would actually have our 6.8 feet. I would have to take a measurement on that. And you know, the house was built by a builder. We bought the house in 2000. So it's not like I made a mistake or put the garage a little too close. But I would also like to add that it's a privacy fence on that complete south side. So the privacy fence went to the back of the house. But when we decided to use the garage for the kennels, I went ahead and went to the front. I stayed 1 inch back from the front corner of the house. So when that garage door is open, you know, from the street and the neighbors, they can't see. They don't even know that that door is opened.
I'll have to send the surveyor back out there.
Mr. Risher, what was, I didn't.
I was just saying he might have to send the surveyor back out there to, to take some measurements.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant from board members? If not, you may be seated.
Thank you.
I would like to, at this time, open it up for those who want to speak in favor of the case. I don't see anyone coming up, so now we'll open it up for anyone who wants to speak in opposition of the case. I see no one coming up. I'm going to let the applicant come back up one more time, just in case any of the board members had one little last question that might want to ask you. Mr. Head, are you okay? Mr. Risher? Ms. Green, everybody okay? All right, you may, oh, yes.
In the event that the applicant has the property resurveyed and it comes back a different measurement, administratively, we can reduce that setback by 10%. So if the setback is 50, I can reduce it by 5.
Is that should we put that in as a condition?
It really wouldn't benefit anything. It's just an option that in the event that the survey is completed and it shows that that setback is probably a little different than what.
Should we put a condition in, though, it should be resurveyed, though?
No, I
Okay.
wouldn't
Okay, all right.
do that.
Okay. That would be up to you, Mr. Head, whatever you decide you want to do. Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Can you please call the case?
Case number VR-16-08, Gary Scott Holcomb of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for the property located at 125 Michaela Drive and land lot 181 of the 8th District. The property consists of 1 ± acres, and the request is for a reduction of the side yard setback. The property is located in Commission District 1 and was presented by Mr. Edward Morrow.
Do I have a motion for this case?
Madam Chairman, I might like to make a motion that the request be approved.
Okay, I have a motion that the request be approved. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, thank you. Next case, please.
Case number VR-16-09, Page Webb LLC of Roswell, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for a property located at 1100 Town Center Village Drive in land lot 110 of the 6th District. The property consists of 0.478 ± acres, and the request is for a reduction of the rear building setback. The property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Ms. Julie Yoder.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Morning.
Good morning, Board. The variance before you this morning is for the property located at 1100 Town Center Village Drive, McDonough, Georgia. This is Jonesboro Road. and 75. And I know it's an odd property, but the property being developed is this square right here. This is AutoZone in front of it, and the Cheddar's restaurant is right here. The property being developed is 4.478 plus or minus acres, and it's zone PD, planned development, in a C2 general commercial pod. The variance being requested is to reduce the rear building setback requirement from 20 feet to 5 feet. On the site plan, this is what it would look like without the variance, and this is what it would look like with the variance. As our ordinance states, every criteria point should be met in order for staff to recommend approval for a variance, and we found there weren't any extraordinary or exceptional conditions, and therefore staff recommends denial of the requested variance.
Alrighty, thank you. Do I have any questions for staff from board members?
None at this time.
Okay, will the applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record, and
Morning, Madam Chairman, Board. My name is David Gunter. My address is 691 John Wesley Dobbs Avenue, Northeast, Unit V, Atlanta, Georgia 30312.
okay, do you have any anything you'd like to add to staff comment?
I mean, essentially what we're looking to do here is to establish the optimal and ideal lot layout and design. The AutoZone that's directly in front along Jonesboro technically fronts Jonesboro Road, but the entrance is on Town Center Village. As a result, they can take advantage of that to use the rear yard setback, their side yard setback is where they set their building. So basically, as we have it here, you can see the actual Jonesboro Road frontage here, Town Center Village frontage here, and because of the Jonesboro Road frontage, sorry guys. Essentially, as you can see, the two entrances are here, and because this fronts Jonesboro Road, they can use the side yard setback at 0 to bring the building right here. And we're essentially just looking to bring it in line with that building so that we can maximize the parking that's there. We were absolutely open to any conditional uses, tied to the parking requirements, and ultimately with the goal of just providing the optimal layout and something that looks in line with the rest of the development.
Okay, any board members have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Nelson.
Now, what is your concern? Are you losing parking spaces by not having the setback?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how many spaces are you losing?
We go from 21 in the proposed layout here, 21 spots. Essentially, this row right here is what we would lose out on. And the Cheddar's restaurant is right here, the back of the Cheddar's. So this is just the back of their parking lot right here. And, so essentially that gap right there, we didn't feel would detract, from the back of the Cheddar's parking lot. And it would allow us to enable that and bring us in line with this AutoZone building right here.
So is the setback's not on Jonesboro Road, is it?
No, they're on Town Center Village Drive.
So, because it's behind the AutoZone, so.
Correct.
Okay, I'm kind of confused now. So you're trying to bring the building forward, so when you do the setback, what road is it adjoining that it requires that?
It fronts on Town Center Village Drive here.
Okay.
So they would just be taking the building and moving it back, like as it shows here.
And
And
so-
Jonesboro Road's up here,
Okay.
and the AutoZone, that sits here fronts on technically on Jonesboro.
Right. So when they move it back, the setback is from the other property, which is Cheddar's? Is
Yes,
Cheddar's
this is
parking?
Cheddar's parking lot, correct.
Okay, so basically, they're just getting closer to the Cheddar's parking area, is that the
Correct.
setback? Okay, that makes sense. I just want to I thought it was, the setback was on Jonesboro Road or that Town Center Road, okay. So it's the Cheddar's parking area. May I ask what business this is? Is it already,
Yeah, so initially, the very first proposal that they had put forth was they have a Sherwin-Williams retail location, but again, the applicant, Paige Webb, who I am on behalf of, are absolutely open to conditional uses if necessary. So, restaurants requiring, a parking spot for every 100 square feet. It's a 4,000 square foot retail building, so 40 parking spots if we wanted to do a 2-story restaurant there. We could not accommodate that, clearly. But anything that's within reason for what we could provide, 21 versus 14, is basically what we're looking for.
so we don't know what's going there. So actually,
Correct.
You're asking for the setback before we even know what's going there.
And the idea being that we would accept restrictions on that, given that consideration.
It's hard to put restrictions on something that you're not going to know what's going to be built. That's the problem.
Understood.
That's the only questions I have. Any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Now, I don't see anyone else in the audience, but I'm going to go ahead and call for 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. And not seeing anyone come up. Anyone want to speak in opposition of the case? Ooh. All right. So I don't see anybody coming up. So let's go ahead and ask the applicant to come back up. My only question for you is why you would ask for this now and not when you know what's going to be there and then ask for it then? I mean, I don't know what that process is.
I mean, essentially, it was to provide a wider array of possibilities for development for Paige Webb. But yeah, I mean, just more parking spaces is a wider use range.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right. I have no other questions. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? All right, you may be seated.
Thank you.
All right, if we can call the case.
Case number VR-16-09, Paige Webb, LLC of Roswell, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 1100 Town Center Village Drive in Land Lot 110 of the 6th District. The property consists of 0.478 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction of the rear building setback. The property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Ms. Julie Yoder.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to follow staff recommendation of denial of the request for a variance.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. All right, thank you. Since this is no more cases after this, I have a motion to dismiss.
Motion to dismiss.
All right. Thank you.